Welcome to another episode of the RAG podcast with me, Sean Anderson, the CEO and founder of Hoxo Media. This is the place where I bring to you conversations with recruitment leaders around the world who are prepared to give up their time to tell us stories about how they've grown their organizations, show us the warts and all life that they lead to be successful as a recruitment agency leader. And at the moment, we're looking at how organizations around the world are tackling the global pandemic. Today, on a Thursday morning, 8 a.m. on LinkedIn Live, I'm excited to be joined, as always, by my co-host, who's, again, he's picked me to the post with the specs game. I did get you in the first one. Pete Watson, welcome to the show, as always.
Good morning, good evening, everybody. Hope you're all well.
Pete, do you think we're becoming the Ant and Dec of recruitment yet? Are we nearly there?
Yeah, well, you need to choose a side. I'm on this side every time, and you need to be on that side every time, and then we've nailed it.
You've nailed it, mate. We'll be on X Factor before the year's out, I tell you. And today, I'm very excited to be joined by a lady that I've also got to know recently in Australia, Angela Horkings, the co-founder and director of Tandem Partners. Angela, welcome to the RAG podcast. Thanks for having me, Sean and Pete. Delighted to be here. Awesome, thank you, Angela. Can you do us a favour and just I know for a fact the people in the UK audience might not have heard of your business. So tell us who you are and a little bit of an overview about your organization.
Of course. We're what you would describe as a boutique recruiter. So we specialize only in the HR field. And we recruit HR folk from sort of early career right through to C-suite. And we recruit all across all industries, so long as it's HR. And of course that extends out to everything from, IR, REM, health and safety, all across Australia. And we actually have an alliance partner with a firm in the UK and the US and Asia as well called Elliott Scott, who again own HR. So we are small in terms of our offering, but I guess we touch quite a broad and large variety of businesses because we work with anyone who has an HR function. We've been around for nearly 10 years and have physical offices in Melbourne and Sydney, and about a team of 20.
Lovely, absolutely lovely.
Sean, can I just say it's a bit of a clue to get Ange on this podcast, because I reached out to her quite a few months ago and asked her to come on my podcast, and she said, "Oh no, that's not my kind of thing." But here she is live on the RAG. So it's a coup.
Wow.
So maybe delighted was overstating it.
Yeah, I feel privileged. I feel very privileged, for sure. So, Ange, you talked about having a HR dedicated organization. I just want to touch on that a little bit. In terms of recruitment, a lot of organizations, like when you recruit other disciplines, you spend a lot of time trying to network with HR and trying to network with internal recruitment teams, right? So, how does that? Is that different for you when your candidates are in the HR function? Do you find that that's just a completely different challenge and a different ball game compared to when you say recruited finance or whatever?
So I think a lot of other recruiters, you said they try to network with HR. A lot would also spend time avoiding HR and internal TA teams to try to get through, their relationships with the discipline. Our candidates are our clients, and it literally kind of goes around. It's a revolving door. So our approach has always been, and it sounds like a cliche, but it is long-term relationships. So we meet people early in their career and we kind of help them through their way up, and they chop and change from being candidates to clients to candidates to colleagues. We've got somebody with us at the moment in our team who we've placed in her career. She's been a client and now she's working with us. So it feels like it's completely connected. And I think that's quite different because in other recruitment firms, it can be more of a distinction between your candidates and your clients, whereas ours are just kind of all one.
Love that. I think that is truly the way recruitment companies should be. Like, they should be so focused on long-term relationships so that, I mean, there can't be any joy in just that churn and burn mindset. I know a guy who owns a recruitment company. I won't name him because he wouldn't like me to name him. But when we catch up, he's someone I knew personally. Their whole model is built on just doing deals. Like, that's it. Like, they don't care about who it is, where it is. Like, it's in technology. But I said, well, would you ever, like, I don't know, take a client out? He's like, you what? Are you married? I was like, would you ever like, spend time with the candidate? He's like, huh? Like, I need to do deals. That's it. That's all I care about. I was like, do you ever do deals with the same company twice? He's like, not that often. I was like, and he's been doing it for like 7 years. So I was like, that must be so tiring. Like, that'd be really tiring, wouldn't it? Whereas the beauty is,
I think especially in Melbourne as well, right, Andrew? So when I came from the UK, the concept of, so I probably had a similar mindset to what you just described, Sean. You in the UK, you'd make a placement and then you kind of forget about them. Especially if you're in London, it's such a jungle. Yeah. Kind of Melbourne, you make a placement, you have to stick close to that person. You have to remember them because it's all about your network. It's all about your personal brand and your reputation. And it's a major city, but it's a small city as well. And reputation and brand and small network is crucial. So you often place the same people several times.
What you've just said there, I think that's why I did well in London, because I started in Melbourne. I learned because I recruited the Vic Gov. I was surrounded by where the government buildings are at the top of Collins Street. I was basically just walking around having coffees all day. And then when I moved to London and I was recruited in the insurance market and it's all around the Gherkin, I just replicated the exact same model and it worked. So I completely agree with that, Pete. Right, Ange, tell us a bit off topic because we are going to get to this year, but why did you start your organization? Like, can you take us back to that journey? Like, why did you launch a recruitment company?
So this is kind of the second time I've done it, but the first time I did it, I didn't fully own it. So that's owned by an individual. So the first time I did it, my career started with a company called Morgan & Banks, which is now known as Hudson. But for those that have been around, and Morgan & Banks, I think, was in the UK for a short time as well. It's a wonderful business, great training, Andrew Banks and Jeff Morgan, absolute icons of the industry. And to work with those guys was pretty special. And so wonderful training, and I was on a great trajectory there. But then it got to a point where you started to see sort of politics within a bigger business and stuff I just didn't like. And I kind of realised, and I was approached to start an HR firm in Melbourne. And the guy that approached me at the time, who I'd worked with before, sort of said, you either have that fear of failure or that fear of regret. And he was spot on. So not doing it, you'd always wonder. So I literally took the plan. And, I was very fortunate I had his backing. He provided that platform and that opportunity. And I'm very grateful for that. So I set up a business called The Next Step, which is still running today. I set it up in Melbourne, and Craig, still owns it and runs it from Sydney. And so that was my first kind of, foray into starting something from scratch, sitting in a serviced office on your own with a phone, thinking, got to make something out of this. And we did. And we built a business, and 7 years later, it was definitely the market leader in the space in Melbourne. But, things changed. So I had, married, had a couple of kids, which I still have. And we just, you kind of get to that point where you think, what is the next, what does the future look like? And do you stay working for somebody else, or do you kind of take that next leap of faith and create something for our family and something that you can kind of hand on? And my business partners were in the same space, and I worked with my husband as well. So we kind of all decided to break out and actually do it on our own fully together, but on our own. So what we wanted to still do, we wanted to just, service the HR market, and we wanted to make some slight changes to that and do it a little bit better and a bit more, we kind of felt like maybe some things we'd not lost our way on, but perhaps we weren't doing them as well as we could. So it also gave us the opportunity to kind of start with a blank sheet again and say, well, if we're starting this business, what would we do slightly differently with the learning and the background and the experience that we have now? But how do we kind of make it better, second time round almost? And that was the birth of Tandem Partners, which is, nearly 10 years ago. So a lot of it was around much greater flexibility, the fact that, we could pick our kids up, drop our kids off, all that sort of stuff was just built in from day dot.
Yeah. No, I get it.
Where did the name come from, Ange? I've never asked you that.
A lot of whiteboard, red wine, a lot of back and forth, and round and round. And we ended up, the tandem was like, we wanted something that demonstrated we worked with our clients and with our candidates, that wasn't this service, or it wasn't, definitely wasn't master-servant relationship. And Tandem we went back to it because it was that parallel that, we worked together. Let's work side by side, and that's what we landed on.
I love that. Sort of word you'd imagine would have been taken, like, because it is so it's so connected with that. So pre-2020, then, when you look back, what was the biggest challenge you faced pre-2020 and as the business owner of Tandem Partner?
We were, we're a small business, so and all the partners still work in the business. So, our challenge was always, how do we grow? And because we're in such a niche, we're not in accounting and IT, so it's not like we can just, be great if we were, wouldn't it, Pete? Because we could just, hire a whole bunch of consultants but we're in this small, high touch niche area. So, as partners who are, heavily working in the business, our challenge was always, how do we grow this thing? How do we give people in our business opportunities? What do we let go of? And what do we bring other people in to do? And so we started to put in place some, leadership roles, and we started to look at our sales capability, because the difference with our business too, and I know there's others like that, a lot of the work comes in through the directors. We don't really have a focus on we don't give people a desk and say, go forth. Yeah. We basically recruit people to deliver really good work. And then we literally kind of feed the work across, and which works really well when and I've shared this with people before. Our mantra has always been, we don't focus on sales, we focus on delivery, and do really good delivery, and what you get more sales. So we were thinking, how do we build that capability in our team, and how do we grow, and what are should we branch out? Should we go into other areas without kind of losing what we do, our uniqueness? So they were some of the things that we were struggling with, and so we started to put some things in place to grow, and we're thinking about growing it. And then, of course, 2020. So
could you just paint a picture of what the business looked like at the beginning of 2020? Like, how would you describe the feeling, like the team, everything in, say, January, February 2020?
We've got the most amazing team, amazing team, and I think we've got a few people more junior in their career. We've got people who have joined us from having internal careers, which is quite unusual. I think everyone started the year very buoyant and ready to kind of make things happen. We did. Having said that, we also had a very traumatic end to 2019, so that's kind of a bit of a backdrop. So, and I'm not sure whether I've even shared this with Pete, but our one of my co-founders in the Sydney business had a Julie Graham, who is just, we've all worked together for far too long. We just can't shake each other. We've all been together for nearly 20 years. She's a avid cyclist and cycles, every morning. She's incredibly fit, and she went out on her bike November 19th, 2019, so just over a year ago. And, at the end of her ride, hit a piece of wood, flipped over, and she's been in Royal North Shore Hospital in Sydney ever since. So is, not in a great condition at all or position at all. That was our end to that happened at the end of 2019, and I think I've just said that everyone started with absolute gusto about 2020 and really pepped up, and they were, and I think if anything it was almost for Julie, particularly the Sydney team. I think the Sydney team in particularly rocked by, or we all have been. But so I think we started, with that as a backdrop at the end of the year, and but I think everyone really committed to making this the best year ever. Yeah.
So can you tell us about what you can remember about the pandemic starting? Like, how did it unfold for you personally?
Probably like a lot of people, it's kind of snuck up on us, didn't it? I don't think ever really thought it was going to get that bad. I think we thought it was just a bit of a, you know, it was happening over there. It wasn't kind of happening here.
Yeah, but when it did finally arrive and we all kind of stood up and took attention, it gripped us within 3 days.
Yeah.
I remember, sorry to interrupt, but I remember I had an interview cancelled because of COVID, like on the Tuesday. And I remember I knew the client pretty well. And I said, mate, why the hell are you cancelling interviews because of this? This is nonsense. And then by Friday, the market was just dead within 3 days. It was crazy. So it did sneak up on us, but when it arrived, it absolutely.
If you remember about 10 years ago when SARS came out in Asia, I was traveling Asia on the way to Australia, and I remember like there was a lot of face masks and things. So I had that vivid memory of like an Asian like virus that, you know, so I that was my opinion. It was just going to be something like that. Like it was not going to actually make its way to the UK, and we weren't going to be affected by it. I was in Dubai when the news started getting quite serious, and I was like, really? Like I said, I've told the story before. I was looking at my phone of a Premier League footballer who was living in China on Sky Sports News, telling like Marwan Fellaini leaves China because of the virus, and I was like. And then this guy in the cab was telling me how serious coronavirus is, the cabbie. And I was like, all right, mate, chill out. Got out the cab, went into my hotel, and the footballer from China was in my lobby. And I was like, has he just brought coronavirus here? And I was like, wow. And when I got back, it just literally took off. Like first week I was back, it was like, wow. So tell us, it snuck up, but what was life like for you at that very time?
So probably not, you know, unlike most other people in the industry, where I think as it snuck up, and then there was almost this bit of panic. You know, the phone started ringing, and you know, what are you doing? How? You know, these are partners in the market in particular, which was wonderful. Everyone was kind of checking in, and you know, have you guys all moved out of the office, and have you made redundancies? And you know, everyone was kind of going. It was like a tailspin, wasn't it? And so we did, you know, we were similar in many ways, that we just, right, let's get out of here. Let's get everyone home. We had all the right technology to do that pretty seamlessly. We'd kind of upgraded our tech not long ago. We were already kind of working that way. So that was pretty straightforward. And we had to make a few adjustments, but everyone got home pretty quickly. Then I think it was, you know, like everyone, it was like, what's the work look like? What's the revenue forecast look like? How much work is actually starting to go on hold? You know what? And that was, I think, happened over a few weeks. You know, it kind of went. It was there, and we were coming off the back of a really busy quarter too. I remember that, like it had actually been full on, and the pipeline was okay, but then it all started to pause, and that's when we went into the same mode as everyone else. What are our cash reserves like? You know, what are the costs we can get rid of? You know, what do we need to focus on? You know, we kind of just went into the same space that I think most people did.
I'm interrupting this podcast to give you an update from our sponsor, Audro. The team at Audro have launched another feature in summer 2020, and it's going to be a game changer. This is going to massively change the way the recruitment agency market operates globally for the future. They've called it Audro Producer. This platform sits alongside the company's award-winning video interview opportunity and gives you, the recruiter, the ability to create engaging, eye-catching video content ready to share in a matter of minutes. So you can record or upload a video, and then you can add banners, overlays, images, subtitles, logos, so that you can create these eye-catching videos that are built for LinkedIn. So whether you're interviewing, whether you're doing sales messaging, or you're just trying to put out valuable content online, then Audro is no longer just a video interview platform. It's also a content creation platform for recruiters. Get in touch with Audro today to see how you can implement this into your recruitment agency ASAP. Thanks for listening. Let's get back to the show.
How worried were you, Ange, as a business owner? Did you feel like it was all going to just slip away?
So it was funny because I didn't feel that as much when I spoke to people. Everyone said it was all falling off a cliff. You know, that was actually that sort of influenced me at times when everyone was saying it's going to get bad. It's going to get really bad. You know, this is the beginning of it.
Yeah.
This is going to be, you know, absolutely, you know, a game changer. This, you know, we're done.
Yeah.
And then, you know, you'd read everything, you'd be like, oh God, really? Is it that bad? So I think it was more, I felt that I had to kind of step back from that, because that was just, you know, reactionary. So I had to kind of step back and say, let's look at and even with my business partners, you know, we did that. I think we all played a role in that, because, you know, one of them would be more conservative around you know, we can't spend in, we've got to take every bit of cost out. But I was like, well, hang on, let's just have a look at what we've got. Let's just keep looking at what's coming in. Let's make some decisions on that, you know, with things like salary reductions. You know, there was, should we go harder than we did? And I'm like, well, we just do this. That's okay. You know, we can afford just to go that far. We don't have to go extreme. So I just kind of kept looking at the information and feeding that into making decisions rather than kind of panicking. I just didn't think we had to go that hard that quickly. And I'm glad we didn't. You know, I think as it played out, we had to make some decisions, but I don't think it didn't feel like it was, you know, too reactive.
What one thing about HR I wanted to know about, like, how did that get affected? Because you've kind of got two trains of thought. Is on one hand, they're more important than ever because every business is looking at their people, especially the slightly larger corporates you might have on your books. So you're not going to let the thought of a HR person leaving at that time when you've then got to worry about everyone else's redundancies or whatever. I imagine it was a crucial role for a lot of organizations. So
yeah, you spot on.
Yeah, I can't imagine that much movement in the market from it, or maybe there was a lot of consultants being hired. I don't know. What was it like from a recruitment perspective?
So initially it was like probably in a lot of businesses where everything just paused because, you know, companies had to take stock and kind of work out what do they need. And then a lot of our roles didn't pause for that long. We kind of had a month or two that it was hard, and a month where, you know, we were certainly down, you know, 50, 60%, absolutely. Yeah. And I know Pete surveyed a few bits at the time, and it was just, you know, this looks rubbish. But then it quickly, you know, from an HR perspective, you're absolutely spot on, Sean. They were front and centre for this whole ordeal. They were managing getting people work remotely. They were, you know, making sure that was all set up. Then they had to, you know, still managing risk and still providing a service, but also, you know, they were working with finance more closely than ever around what does JobKeeper, how do we actually, you know, manage JobKeeper around, because there's tax implications and leave implications, and it's not just straightforward. So there's all that kind of piece. And then there's the whole well-being and the mental health aspect, which, you know, some upside in that it became, you know, more the forefront, which is a good thing, that, you know, organisations don't worry about the well-being of their people in a more serious way. Not that they didn't in the past, but I think it just became more, you know, more overt. So again, HR kind of there managing through that, advising on it, and every HR person we've spoken to has never worked harder. No. They've all said it has been, you know, consuming. But, you know, one CPO said to me just this morning, I've never felt more relevant.
Yeah.
Because, you know, they people can actually see their value. And so for us, in terms of, you know, working in that area, the need picked up again. So whilst things paused, all of a sudden they couldn't afford to lose HR people. And, you know, whether it's from a workplace relations perspective or whatever it was, they were like, actually, we need these resources, so find them. So kind of, our volume picked up again.
And you just touched on mental health, and again, as a small business owner, so I sort of saw this whole COVID thing play out in two waves. The first was that panic that you talked about, where everybody said, right, how the hell do we stop our business from going down the drain? And then once everybody kind of worked out what they were working with, there was then this second awareness, which was, right, okay, oh my goodness, we've got this second layer of responsibility, which is to our people, and to making sure that they get through this as well. At what point did you become acutely aware that you suddenly had this other responsibility to deal with, which was looking after the mental health of your people who weren't even in your office?
Can I answer that in two ways? Because the first thing that worried us when you said, were you guys worried at the outset of this as business owners? What we were really worried about was we were worried about the fact that we had our own families to feed. And my husband's business had just stopped, outdoor adventure, none of that happening. Kids programs, none of that. So we had this, we were like, well, we're going to have, what do we have to do? We've got to keep our own families okay. Yeah. We've got mortgages, and then we were like, but we've got all these people, this responsibility that we've got to feed the rest of the team. And, that responsibility, we that's, I guess, again, it was heightened. We are like a little family, and, everyone that we've invited into that family, we do feel incredibly responsible for them. And that was the concern, to look and think, how do we feed everyone? So that was, every decision was circled around that. We offered, as soon as Julie had her accident last year, we offered EAP to everyone, and so that we just made sure that everyone knew that service was available from the outset.
What's EAP, sorry?
Oh, sorry, Employee Assistance Program. So, where somebody can call a psychologist and have a counselling session. So if anyone, some people were struggling more with the situation of the work from home. Some people work from home fine, others hadn't. So we made sure that everyone had access to that, and that they knew that they could use, and that's unlimited. So, call as much as you like, speak to people. We just had to really up our own one-on-ones, so making sure that we were checking in with people and that they felt that they could talk to us anytime. And that's, everyone has different. I think one of the hardest things with that, Pete, is actually working out who needs what, because you can't always tell, you can't always read it. And I guess even with our team meetings, you start to get a look into people's personal situations, and, people sitting on beds or hiding, kind of having to do calls from the kitchen table and things. And I know we've all sort of seen that, but, it's awkward, and that doesn't help their well-being at all. And
then, of course, you've got people. I know that you've got some people in your team, not many, but you've got some people who are going through this thing, and they're 12,000 miles away from home. People from the UK.
Absolutely, that's the other thing. And one of our team members' family was moving, from the US back to the UK, and she, and her concern about visa and all of that sort of stuff was very up in the air at the beginning. We also had one who'd had I don't know what it is with our team, but we also had another team member who'd had a horrific skiing accident in Canada, and, she was lucky to still be alive. And so she was in massive physical recovery mode as soon as COVID hit. She just arrived back, and all of a sudden she was in COVID. So she was also trying to physically recover. So it was, and I asked the team, have we helped you enough? I said we were having this conversation. Tell me, what have we done well? What didn't we do so well? And look, the feedback that they're sharing, they're saying they felt really supported, that they felt that we checked in with them, they felt that they, had access to support if they needed it. We did the mixture of the lighthearted things as well as trying to get people to focus on, things that they could control. So I'm a massive believer in, we can't wallow in what we can't fix or change. So, things like the restrictions or lockdown, or it is what it is. But what can you do? What can you do with your time? What can you do with your energy, so that you feel a sense of satisfaction as well? Like if you, talk to your clients, call those candidates you haven't spoken to forever and touch base with them, you're going to feel better. They will feel better. So we tried to focus on giving people a sense of things to do, so that, because otherwise it just becomes a downward spiral around, the situation. So it was trying to get them to think about.
Did you keep your teams working, or did some of them go on to JobKeeper, or how did the scheme work?
We were able to keep them all working. And we only really had those 2 months where we were kind of all scratching around for work and had to kind of, make sure that, because that was the hardest thing, I think, when people felt idle. But we cleaned up the database. We had little projects to do. We revisited our values. we looked at our REM model, we put together a 5-year plan. So we did lots of things and we did lots of improvements around using technology. So we tried to make sure that people had things to do if they didn't have active jobs. So that worked quite well. We have one team member who, bless her, she's an experienced HR person herself. So we seconded her with one of our clients for 6 months. And so then she became a client again. Yeah. And then we've seconded her onto another client for 6 months. So so that's the only one who hasn't been working in the business.
Wow. And what was your personal life like? You mentioned you've got children that you still have. You mentioned that your husband's business fell off a cliff. Well, tell us a bit more about how you personally dealt with day-to-day life from we know you've got client responsibility, candidate responsibility, team responsibility, but you've also got family responsibility. How did you get through all of that?
Yeah, I'm not sure all parts I did equally well. And I know particularly homeschooling, and I know, lots of people have, we've all whinged about it. But I did find that tough. And we've all got different types of children. My son has some learning challenges, so he needs a lot more supervision around schooling. But my daughter, who's quite independent, she really struggled. She didn't have it sorted, and that surprised us. We thought she was fine, and she wasn't fine. So the hard part was actually watching the impact on the kids and seeing their motivation deteriorate, and the novelty voluntarily wore off for them in the latter part of lockdown. And you also gain pretty close insights to their strengths and their challenges as well, which is actually a fantastic advantage, because we don't get to see that, when you're teaching them, we do, but we're kind of removed. And so that I'm glad we did have that experience, but yeah, it was a tough one. And, my husband's business came to a standstill. It's okay though. He's just set up a completely different business, and that's going gangbusters. So, we call it the incredible swivel. So, that there were moments where, he was kind of sitting around going, what do I do? And so it's been, that we had those challenges. I think, personally, I felt, again, from a team perspective, that I had to turn up each day positive. And if I didn't stay positive, then, that wasn't going to help anyone. So I did feel that I had to kind of probably overplay that a bit, rather than.
Did that not put an awful amount of pressure on you though, Ange? And what did you do when you were having a tough day? Who was looking out for you?
Well, I think I think my family, and I've got an amazing, friendship group. So I just did lots of walks, and actually my friends were, those walks, that we all did. But that's when you could vent. That's when you could, talk things through. And my business partners, we, as I mentioned, we've been together for, 20 odd years now, and we're kind of, we're like siblings. We don't always get along. We're different. Don't always agree. But I think this has made us stronger. This whole, we have our flare-ups, but we work through stuff during COVID, and I think that really helps. So there'd be times when I'd say to the three of us, we need to keep this up. We need the team to be up. So we've got to watch ourselves get into, we can't get morose, because what's that, how's that going to help anyone? Yeah, there was something else I was going to say. Oh, that was what I was going to say, Sean. This is the one thing that I think did help the team, and everyone's given the feedback on this. When we did the Hoxo Academy, despite my reservations, you make everyone do a personal reflection or write something personal. Yeah. So we actually rolled that out to the team as a bit of an exercise. Write something personal, and we kind of left it with them. It wasn't they could do it or not do it. but that was on the back of Matt and I having shared our own personal reflections as well. And that was, I guess, the time that we did show some vulnerability.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, you know, it's almost contradictory. It's great to stay positive and it's great to stay up. But then I think the team also really appreciated knowing what we struggled with as well. So there is that balance between keeping everyone fired up, but also, you know, you've got to be real about it as well. It's not, you know, it's not all, you know, rainbows and unicorns. So the personal reflection, I think, touched a chord with people. And then you should have, you know, the personal reflections the team came back with were amazing.
Really?
They shared what they really struggled with, what they were struggling with. And for them, they felt like it was a, you know, almost therapy. And I think culturally it connected everyone in a different way because they all felt closer again.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Well, I'm really pleased that I didn't even know that happened. I think, to be honest, the academy felt like therapy for me throughout the whole period. I think your group specifically as well was a very interesting time because I was going through stuff. I was moving around a bit, and you guys were on the floor. I remember, not you particularly, but you as a group, you were on the floor in the first session. I remember Pete said, "Fucking chances we've done this. We've set this up the night of the senator saying you're going back into lockdown." And I remember thinking, I probably didn't realize it was that big a thing as much as Pete did. He was like, just let me know how it goes, mate. And I was like, yeah, don't worry. And then I remember it was about, what time was it? About 8:30 in the morning or something in the UK, 7:30 in the morning. And I jumped on and I was like full of beans, and everyone I felt like there was it wasn't flat like you were tired. It was flat like the life had been sucked out of the group. And I remember thinking, this could be a long 12 weeks. I honestly, I text Pete after it. I text Pete going, that was probably the hardest first session I've ever done. And then when I look back on all the groups, you're the one group that stands out because everyone turned up every bloody week, which was a start. The attendance was incredible.
Got to show up, don't you, Pete?
Yeah, you've got to show up. But you had every reason as a group to blame other things, to blame the lockdown, to blame the pandemic, to blame your mental health, whatever. But I felt like as a team, the vulnerability and the openness was incredible. And I don't think you all knew each other that well, like before. But it felt like there was a real connection in the group, and I loved it personally. I just loved watching it. It was great.
But I think you've said a few times, Sean, and I've heard it repeated several times as well, that a byproduct of the academy, which you never planned for, you never expected, was the bonding and the camaraderie. And it was just for Angela's group, it was just beautiful timing. And people have said that they looked forward to that whatever it was, that 7 o'clock slot on a Monday night, and just reconnect, having the opportunity to reconnect. It was just something to look forward to.
Yeah,
in back time.
And I felt like the luckiest one because I was like riding all these waves. Like I'd have you guys, and then I'd have another group, and then I'd have another group, and I would have some really low moments, and then every time you had 15 people that were so inspiring, pulling you back up. And I think to be honest, that's the one thing I love about my job the most is the fact that my clients are entrepreneurs and I learn from every one of them. So, you know, it's really inspiring audience anyway to deal with, but to then hear how they're dealing with challenges and, you know, have people support you getting through things and watch the way that, I mean, it was remarkable. I felt it was great. And now working with your teams and, you know, yesterday we had 400 recruiters on the academy yesterday in a day.
Not bad.
By the end of it, I couldn't speak and my voice was just completely gone. And I've got a bit of a cold. I've had a few messages going, have you got COVID? I was like, no, don't worry. I've been tested this week. I actually haven't got COVID but I got a test. But it's been remarkable. A final interruption to today's episode to introduce Vincere. Vincere is the all-in-one CRM ATS platform built for the recruitment and staffing industry. Now, I first heard about these guys about a year ago. The amount of prospect recruitment agencies and clients I was working with that were telling me they were moving over to Vincere, I had to look into it. And what I found was a business that had a global reach with multiple offices around the world. So they've got this follow the sun methodology, which allows them to support recruitment businesses wherever you are and be in your time zone. But the technology that they've invested in is becoming a disruptor in the space. More and more recruitment businesses are doing this to give their recruiters a competitive advantage. They broke into the G2 Crowd's momentum grid as a market leader based on their reviews from their customers. So the agencies that are using this platform are raving about it. Now, if you're a RAG listener and you're thinking about changing CRM, or you're a new business looking to launch with a new CRM, then I would get in touch with these guys, because if you mention that you're a RAG listener, they're doing an amazing deal. By visiting www.vincere.io/RAG, you can get an exclusive deal which offers 2 months completely free on a 2-year commitment, or 3 months completely free on a 3-year commitment. This applies to all licenses that you've either signed up for now or that you'll add in the duration of the contract. So get on there and have a look. Finally, if you're listening and you're a recruiter and you're thinking, I want to move into a more of a business development role, and I'd like to keep hold of my recruitment knowledge. Well, these guys are recruiting for a BD person, well, multiple roles in both Sydney and London right now. So if you've got a strong recruitment background, you want to move into BD, and you want to work for a fast moving tech business that's helping people like you right now, then get in touch via their website, because they're hiring today. Back to the show. So one of my questions for you, Angela, would be, looking back pre-COVID, looking back now, I know you guys are in a much better place. What positives has it brought out in you as an individual, like in terms of the way you look at your family or the way that you look at your business? What's better about you, do you think, as a result of COVID in 2020?
Yeah. It's a good question, and I think, kind of describe COVID as the great disruptor, hasn't it? It's I think the disruptor that we needed. We were kind of on and this is me personally as well, kind of in this rhythm of this frenetic lifestyle where you were always kind of rushing, and we're rushing to drop the kids off at school, then rushing into the office, then rushing to sit at a cubicle, then rushing into a meeting, then rushing back to pick them up again, to then rush to them somewhere else, and there was never, I used to say, there's no margin for error. You can't drop any of those balls, or otherwise they're just going to fall apart. So it was just, and you knew it was silly. You kind of knew it wasn't good, but you couldn't stop. Because everyone was doing the same thing, and everyone was stretched, and never felt that you were doing all parts well. It was impossible. And then this is just kind of, again, sucked the wind out of all of us, but it kind of had to happen. So I personally never want to get back on that frenetic treadmill ever again. And the thing is, it's not either or. I think in the past we used to think if you didn't want that life, that meant you had to take a step back, or you had to do something less. Whereas now I'm just doing it differently. So it doesn't mean that you can't still be amazing at your job and, have a great business, but you can actually still see your kids a little more often than what you did in the past, and actually be, sounds cliche, be more present with them and actually spend more time. And again, you don't have to be a social animal. You don't have to be. So just, I think that step back, I'm thrilled about, and don't want to change it.
So how do you see it working, or what's your what are the obvious ways you're going to keep that? That's what I'm trying to imagine.
So I'm not going to be rushing back into the office 5 days a week ever. Right. And then, again, I know not everyone's kind of struggling with what's that really going to look like, this blended workplace for the future. We don't know. We gave our office up. That was one of the things we said. We'd rather lose bricks and mortar than lose a person. And we lost the bricks and mortar. So we kept all the people. So, an office is an office. But what that's going to look like next year, who knows? But it'll be something where we get to come together when we need to. But, I used to feel we used to offer a lot of flexibility as a business. I used to feel guilty if I wasn't in the office. I completely let go of that. So
I think what you're saying, Angie, is being shared across the industry. I think everybody, not everybody, but everybody currently is saying the same. We're never going to go back to the old ways, and it's awesome. It's awesome.
The Hoxo HQ was vacated yesterday, so we had 6 months notice. We got burgled in the middle of it, lost all of our cameras and expensive kit. We got paid out insurance, which is okay. But yeah, I walked out of that on a Thursday. I think it was something like the 15th of March. Me and Amma just said, let's just close it tomorrow and we'll see what happens next week. This was a week before we were told to do it, but because everyone was on Zoom, we had quite a remote everyone was taking a day from home and stuff. We're like, it's Friday, let's just keep it shut. And then I only went back once after we got burgled. And it's like, yesterday I didn't even see it. I'm in a different city now. I'm in Manchester, and Amma moved it out. And it was crazy, but we're homeless as a business. But I'm actually like, I love it. I absolutely love it. I think it's, you know, I can never see us in my head. I can't see an office with a Hoxo sign up again. I don't know, I might do in the future, but right now, I just don't think we need it. Like you say, I'd much prefer the people than the bricks and mortar, 100%.
Yeah, it's hard to know. I mean, you know, the other thing I think that's, you know, again, the experience with Hoxo helped with this, but it's helped with all our clients. I think formality's been stripped away from a bit, you know, in terms of doing business. So there's still professionalism, but it just feels less formal and kind of more real and a bit more open. Yeah. So I'm really I think that's something, you know, I hope we all hold on to, because, you know, we step into everyone's homes now. You know, you interview somebody, you're taking a brief from a client, and, you know, you can see what their surrounds, and we all talk about their dog, you know, the dogs and the kids, and it's just made that more connected. So you don't even want to go back to that, sort of stage.
It's been such a great leveler, hasn't it? It's from my perspective, I would always have certain people that you would be the supplier, they would be the client, and you would pay the necessary level of respect. But when COVID happened, that all just went out the window, and it was just one person talking to another person, because we were all in the same boat. In fact, Ange, you and I, you know, talk about camaraderie and reaching out and helping out each other. I had a situation with you, Ange, when the panic gripped us, and it gripped me just as much as, in rec to rec, people were telling me that my market wasn't going to come back for 2 years. And I, as somebody who knew I had to somehow provide for my family, I swallowed all of my pride. In fact, I did a post on it, didn't I? And I sent my CV to Coles, looking for an internal recruitment job. And it was such a low moment when I spoke to somebody at Coles, and they said, "Can you send us your CV?" I said, "I don't have a CV. I haven't had one for 16 years, but I'll write my CV." And I sent it to Coles, and it was such a leveler. And at that time, in that same moment, I rang you, Ange, and said, "Look, I've just sent my CV to Coles. Have you got any better internal recruitment jobs that I could consider?" And you were lovely, and you gave me, some advice, and you spoke to me and everything. But that was just that.
Did I pay?
You get me a job, Ange. But thank God you didn't get me a job, because
exactly.
We've made some placements in rec to rec. But it was just an example of how suddenly clients were becoming friends and just helping each other. It was awesome.
With your market, Ange, again, I'm only speculating, but I imagine because HR functions only ever get so big, you must have to have quite a lot of clients. Like you must have to have a large, like a wider landscape. Like you said, technology, people can hire 100 developers next week. You can have, but you need to have a breadth of clients that you understand. So that must have meant always keeping on tabs, but during the COVID period, did you like slice and dice, divide and conquer, and say, right, we've got to get across every single customer and go for it wide, left to right?
Yep, that's exactly what we did. And it was kind of tied into, building sales capability in the team as well. So giving people, clear sectors, and then we're updating the database. So that was kind of a task in itself. So it would identify where people had moved, and then you could call them. And so it's been actually a big project, but it gave people, again, this focus on who to call and who to target. So we're kind of the flip of, I think, what most businesses would focus on, that 80-20 rule, get most, 80% of your revenue from, hang on, I've said that wrong, hasn't it?
No, it's right. 20% of your client base would pay 80% of your revenue. You're definitely not. Yeah, you're
exactly. Whereas we've got to have, ours, we would have a number of big clients, big companies have got large HR functions, but then we've got to be across a bunch. So we work with a lot of organisations, and so that's why it's high touch as well.
I think for you though, is an incredible, if you did do that well, which I have every faith you guys did, that's got to set you in an amazing place for next year, because you would have connected with so many clients this year that you potentially might not have built such strong relationships with in a normal year, that if they get back to, properly, common or even, growth level, sort of levels of recruitment, that's going to set you in good stead, right? You could have a real bumper 2021 if it all goes well.
I'm optimistic. Like, I think, everyone likes to have an opinion on what next year looks like, and we can leave that to the experts. Not that anyone really got 2020 right, but I think the signs for us is that there's got to be activity. Everyone's kind of recovering. Everyone's thinking about, because they were in survival mode for so long. Now that kind of the shackles are off around that, people are planning. They're thinking. We've got clients calling saying, this is what we're going to need for next year. And particularly if from a business strategy perspective, they've had to, pivot, change, or do something different, then they do need different people. So we're already hearing that. We're already hearing clients saying, get this on your radar. Think about this. Any of that investment that maybe was paused during COVID, it's kickstarting again, particularly around systems and, technology. Again, we've already heard that. Plus you've still got, I think the experience of COVID, is only going to highlight where there's been gaps or deficiencies in capability across organisations. So again, they're going to need to start filling those gaps moving forward. So I'm much more optimistic than maybe some others might be. I was perhaps a little more cautious 5 months ago.
Yeah,
but we haven't seen that massive crash. We haven't seen the negative economic impact that we thought was coming. So we might have escaped it.
I think depending on, I don't know the exact ins and outs in Australia, but I know here, like, the amount of government borrowing is going to dramatically affect us in the next few years, like from tax and the cuts and all sorts. There will be a huge economic impact, I think, once the virus is under control. But I don't think it'll be to the point where, I still think there'll be a lot of opportunity for recruiters for sure. But what are you hearing, Pete? I mean, your finger on the pulse in Australia, the man, the number one rec to rec in Australia. I've been told a few times this week. What are you hearing over there?
Honestly, I think the people who say we've got a tough year ahead of us are in the minority. Most people are upbeat. Most people think we're well and truly past the worst of it. Most people think Australia is going to be okay. All of my clients are hiring. Everybody's bracing themselves for this magical year next year. I think everybody's saying 2022 is just going to be off the scale. 2021 is going to be okay. The challenge we're going to have in the recruitment industry, of course, is, and I think I said this on one of the previous podcasts, is that so many people have left the industry. So many good people have probably left the industry. A lot of people have gone into internal recruitment. A lot of people have gone back to the UK. A lot of people have just abandoned recruitment because it was just too brutal. And if the borders aren't opened soon, then all those empty recruitment desks have to be populated with Australians. If we can't bring the POMs in, so it's going to be really interesting to see how recruitment businesses restaff.
Of all the placements you make, Pete, what percentage would be from overseas?
I can tell you exactly, Sean. 48%.
48%.
Wow.
And I spoke to another rec to rec a few days ago who said 65% of their placements came from the UK.
Do you think that's... Oh, well, there's obvious reasons for it. They're coming with experience, right? A lot of the people. I mean, I came without experience. But do you think it's partly to do with the network of leaders in the industry being from the UK as well? Because I remember at Randstad, like almost every manager was English, pretty much.
No, I don't think that's the reason why. I think the reason why, and you might have a different opinion, but in the UK, when you graduate, you go to a graduate fair for example, and there'll be 6 or 7 recruitment businesses all trying to pull in these graduates, and it's an obvious career choice for young people in the UK. In Australia, it's not really, recruitment is not really an obvious career choice.
Yeah.
I don't know why, and for that reason, they've had to pull in talent from the UK for many, many years, and I'm glad they have. Because it's given a living.
Yeah. We probably still need to work on how we actually grow our own.
Yeah, totally. It'll be better for everybody.
Yeah, better for everybody, for sure. Well, what does Christmas look like for you, Ange? Like one interest? I know you guys have it in much better conditions than we do. The weather's going to be great. You've got no virus, which is incredible. I mean, I just can't get my head around when I see like 20,000 a day in the UK. But having such an emotionally draining year, but also having spent more time with family than ever. What does Christmas look like? Are you all desperate to be with family, or you're like, we might minimize the family time this year and spend more time with our friends? Like, what's going on in your?
Having said that, our borders have only just opened. So my sister and they're in Queensland, and we haven't been able to see them all year. And so I've actually, already booked a week up there because we can work from anywhere, right? So, pre-Christmas I'll be on the Gold Coast, and then we've already booked some holidays down at the coast here. So we just want to get out to the beach. I think everyone is exhausted, and nobody's necessarily talking about ambitious holidays. Everyone just wants a holiday, and I think everyone just wants to genuinely chill and just relax. And it is going to be with the family. I still adore them. They kind of like most of the time. So, we'll just, and with friends, friends, family, and just actually, I think, stop. Most people I've spoken to are shutting down till at least the 11th. You're hearing the same thing, Pete. But, it's everyone, and that's the big companies as well. Everyone's just saying, take your leave and don't come back until at least the 11th of Jan. And
what date would you finish if you're going until 11th? What date would it all finish before the Christmas?
So normally the first week of Jan or second week of, but this is a complete shutdown, and I think it'll be like Paris in August. There'll be no one around. I think
Christmas Day falls on a Friday. So would most businesses run up to sort of late Christmas Eve or the week before?
Oh no, I think that would be 24th to the 11th, something like that. Don't you think? So it'll just be I think a Christmas and a summer to enjoy.
Yeah,
I must be honest. My thoughts are probably with all those UK recruiters who would typically have gone home to see their family or invited their family over here. That won't be happening. It's going to be tough on those guys.
I remember I left. I think it was about the 15th, 16th of December. I was so excited. Flew back via Air China in Beijing. And it was like a 2-day journey or something. It was so cheap. It was crap. It was the worst flight ever. And I remember landing in London, having had I think it was about 40 hours of traveling without any real, broken sleep. And then because I was a school teacher before I went to Australia, I had the school I worked at had a Christmas party, and I hadn't seen any of the people for 18 months. So I literally come out of London Heathrow, went straight to the Heathrow Express into central London, and then straight on a train to Sheffield. And it was we don't even get snow at Christmas in England, but it was snowing. It was freezing. It was and I was overwhelmed because I'd been away for over a year, just hearing the accents, seeing the signs, see everything that I grew up with. And I remember getting to Sheffield, and that was one of the most drunk I think I ever been. After about an hour, I had I don't know what, because of just no sleep, the weird air on the plane. And the overwhelming, seeing so many faces. I remember being absolutely a mess after about an hour. And then the next day I woke up and I remember seeing Good Morning TV and just being dead excited by it. I was wow, this is amazing. So it was a really nice Christmas, but I was ready to. I loved I remember landing in Melbourne and just thinking, this is brilliant. January, and it's not dark and it's not wet. Wow. So do think about us, please, Pete. Think about us all. Think about us all. We need your thoughts. Well, guys, we're out of time. Angela, thank you so much. I've loved it. I think one thing about you on the Academy was I think you were solid as a rock. That's how I would describe you. You're solid as a rock. There was I didn't feel like there was any waving. You were there, you were on time. You are literally in my opinion, you're you're the archetypal leader of a business that you'd want to work for, because you're just I'm going to be here on time. I'm going to give it my all. And I can just see how you, I can see how you would have done things. But having this time today, I feel like I've understood you even more, which has been great. So thanks for being so open. Appreciate it.
I appreciate the time, and it's lovely to speak to you again, Sean, and thanks again for the invite, Pete. Glad I said yes.
Pleasure. Guys, I really hope you enjoyed this.
Wasn't that bad, was it though, Ange?
What's that?
It wasn't that bad. It was okay. Maybe you'll do my podcast now. Do you think you can maybe do my podcast now? Maybe.
We'll talk about it later.
You don't want. You're on the number one podcast now. You might be the number one rec in Australia, but you ain't the number one podcast in Australia. Anyway, so we'll leave it at that. Guys, if you've enjoyed listening today, well, thank you for first and foremost for your attention as always. I love the fact that you guys keep tuning in. If you've enjoyed Angela's story today, I want you to do one thing. I don't ask you to pay me any money to listen to this show. I ask you to share this show. So if there's someone out there that you think will resonate with Angela, and a little bit of me and Pete as well, then please do share this podcast. Drop the link that you're listening to via the iTunes store or Spotify or YouTube or whatever in an email, text, WhatsApp to someone who needs it. I truly, truly believe that, by getting people in Australia, giving up their time in the evening to be on air at 8 a.m. in the UK to give us their insights and support at times like this is invaluable. So together, I truly believe, we're all stronger. I'll be back again on Tuesday. I've got a really interesting guest, a guy called Kyle Winterbottom, who is the founder of a relatively new startup recruitment business in the UK. He started in the lockdown, and this guy has been living personal branding. He's on my academy, but I don't think he needs it. This guy knows his stuff, and he's the host of a podcast. He's been asked to appear on panels. He's been asked to quote in a book in his industry, and he's only had his agency for 4 months. He's been in recruitment a few years, but he's what I would say is one of the most progressive modern recruitment owners I've ever met. So I'm super, super excited about him on Tuesday. And who have we got up next week, Pete? Who's on Thursday?
I knew you were going to ask me that. It's either Anton from Marshall McAdam or it's Paul from Bluefin Resources. One of those.
But you need to work that out. But we've got an action-packed week for you next week. I'll be back again on Tuesday. Pete and I will be back on Thursday. In the meantime, you stay safe, and I will see you soon.